What's good with it, Black Goose TV family? Double salute. As always, your boy Fluence Boxing is back in the building with some more Fluence Boxing news for my people. And I could kind of say this is breaking news because this just has been reported today. Now we have a lot of different reports coming out when it comes to it. Obviously, you guys can see I'm talking about Canelo versus Ggg Trilogy, and we're talking about the pay-per-view numbers, and we're going to get into the discrepancies when it comes to the different reports, when it comes to the numbers that it did pay-per-view wise, who we should believe, who we should trust, or at the very least, let's try and get an idea or an estimation of how many buys actually were made for this particular fight. Now, I am going to preference all of this with the statement saying, I personally said before the fight happened, yo, this fight feels like it's under promoted. I love boxing. I watch boxing. I follow boxing. We got a whole channel based off of boxing. You know what I'm saying? I didn't care about this fight until the week of. And the only reason I cared about the fight during that week was because when it was presented to me, shout out to his snipers, I was like, oh, I totally forgot about that. Now I'm happy because there's really nothing else to watch on that particular weekend. So we can get it popping. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't necessarily like I had this excitement inside of me. I was like, oh, I get to see Canelo versus Ggg Trilogy. I've been waiting so long for this because, obviously, if you're on, my side of the game when it comes to age, we all know this is well overdue. Canelo fans say it's Triple G's fault. Triple G fans says Canelo's fault. People in the middle say it's Eddie Hearn's fault. Whatever the case may be, there was a long delay for this third fight to happen. And me personally, the lead up to the fight, the build up to the fight, it was underwhelming. I wasn't that excited for it. I did get excited for it on the day of. I started kind of telling things or making things up like, yo, this is going to happen. We're going to see an upset. It's going to be a close fight. I remember the first two fights, how crazy they were. And, you sometimes you got to do that, especially as a boxing fan, especially when it comes to a fight like this. I keep comparing this to the Floyd Mayweather-Pacquiao fight where it's like, so much time passed. We have two fighters at a totally different stage of their career, athletically, mentally, physically, etc., financially, where it's like, how could you get the same fireworks that you got for the first two fights? Just too much time has passed. But, I tried to tell myself, hype myself up, like, no, we're going to have a fire-ass fight, only to, unfortunately, build my expectations so high to be let down with how the actual fight went. And, I'm not going to go into necessarily detail in this particular video on that. I'm going to do a live tomorrow or Friday. We're really going to break down, the Canelo versus Triple G aftermath, pay-per-view buys, all that good stuff. I'm going to give you guys a nitty-gritty. But tonight, this particular video, I just kind of want to get into the topic or try and get an understanding why we have such different reports when it comes to the actual number on the pay-per-view buys. Obviously, it's still early, so that's expected. There's always speculation. There's always allegedly, approximately when it comes to pay-per-view buys on most big events. You probably don't end up finding out the actual number until maybe like 2 to 3 weeks after the event is done. But event this big, usually depending on who the source is, you get an idea of where the number stands at. So we're going to be looking at those different sources so we can try and, at least personally for us, be like, okay, this sounds right. We're probably going to be in this range. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're going to be mainly getting into when it comes to this particular fight. But let me get back to my point when it comes to me not being hyped up for the fight. Then the fight happening, I built my expectations way too high just so I can get hyped up for the fight. Being underwhelmed. Personally, yes, Triple G looked 40 in there. But, if you want to say, at him being 40, looking slower, he survived all 12 rounds, never got hurt, kept coming forward. After the fight, it looked like Canelo had more damage on his face than Triple G. That's just what it is. Y'all don't believe me? Go look at the post-fight interviews. Triple G barely had a mark on his face. Canelo's, both of his eyes were swollen for the most part, cuts. Anyways, so like the way I look at that particular fight is it's weird because, you have a lot of people saying, Triple G looked too old, he should retire. Then on the other hand, there's not enough people, in my personal opinion, saying the real is, well, if Triple G looked that old and he should retire, why did a young prime Canelo have so much trouble and difficulty making it look, at least from the eye perspective, from the naked eye perspective, like he was dominating them? Because it didn't look that way. He was winning the rounds, yeah, but he wasn't dominating Triple G. So it needs to go hand in hand. Criticism needs to go hand in hand, right? Triple G looked old. He looked slow. Probably too little, too late. Does he have something left in the tank? Yeah, he does. How much of that should he exercise? That's going to be basically on him and where his heart is. And then when it comes to Canelo, it's like, yeah, you got the W, but shit, it wasn't a good W at all, man. If we want to, keep on talking about how Triple G is older and he looks slower, why did it seem like you didn't have an easy fight with him then? It should have been an easy fight with you being the best boxer. That's what a lot of people consider him, the face of boxing. You should have got him out of there. At least it should have been 12 rounds dominance. And that wasn't the case for me personally. Yes, he won a lot of rounds, but it just wasn't dominant in my personal opinion, which made the fight even that much more lackluster. Now, with all that being said, me setting all that up, kind of, putting the wrapping around the gift before I put the bow on the joint. My whole point is I remember Eddie Hearn during that broadcast basically say, yo, this is going to do over 1 million pay-per-view buys, right? He reported it even before the fight. I think it's going to do over 1 million pay-per-view buys, excuse me. And I kept saying, I don't see how that's even a possibility. I'm like, is people really checking for this fight like that? I'm like, I know people are going to be watching it or paying attention to it because it's Canelo, it's Triple G. Yeah, but for people, 1 million plus people to buy this pay-per-view, I said you're gonna be lucky if you do over 400K, 450, right? That's what I said. Now we are here. We have some reports out, varying reports at that. When it comes to the actual pay-per-view buy numbers. Now, everything that I'm going to be reading when it comes to these articles, when it comes to specifics, take it with a grain of salt, people, because it's still early. We are not going to have the exact numbers, like I said, or the realistic numbers of this pay-per-view buys probably until another week and a half. So everything right now is speculation. Everything right now is approximately. Everything right now is what seems to be the case, but we're not sure yet because we ain't count the final pay-per-view buy, right? But as of now, as you guys can see over here, Boxing News 24 is saying DAZN is reporting that 1.06 million pay-per-view buys for Canelo versus Triple G. So they're saying they did over 1 mil. Now, why do I kind of roll my eyes when I see that? Why do I kind of be like, oh, is it really y'all did over 1 mil? DAZN's reporting over 1 mil. Is that true? And this might be one of the cases. This is the thing, too. You guys got to remember, DAZN does not have to release his pay-per-view numbers. I think DAZN really never releases his pay-per-view numbers unless it has to do with Canelo. Other than that, I don't think they ever released their pay-per-view numbers. Oh, and I guess they released their because I don't even think they released the pay-per-view numbers for AJ versus Usyk. So for them to come out and say this is the numbers interesting, it makes me believe them to an extent since they never do it, or it makes me seem, or it's like it's one or two ways. Okay, they're reporting their numbers, which they never do for the most part. So I guess I should believe them. Or on the other hand, I could be like, all right, why are they reporting their numbers? You know what I'm saying? Like, why in this particular case do they feel the need to report the numbers and then possibly inflate them? Like, what's the idea behind that? So it's a double-edged sword. Personally, when I look at this, I'm like, all right, yeah, I can believe in them, but then it's like on the other hand, it's like maybe I can't believe them because maybe they're just trying to save face by reporting these numbers, and they never plan to actually release the real numbers, and then we can all think that it really did this many amount of pay-per-view buys. I don't know what the case is, but we're going to get into this. All right, we're going to get into the specifics of this particular article. There's another article that I want to talk about as well. That basically specifically is just saying the exact opposite of what this article is saying when it comes to pay-per-view buys. We have literally two different people reporting two different numbers when it comes to this. One of them happens to be DAZN and their team reporting this 1 million, and then Dan Rafeal, who's very notable, used to be with ESPN, moved over to boxingscene.com. A lot of times he's like 90% of the time his shit is correct. He's reporting a totally different number than 1.6 million pay-per-view buys. He's actually a lot lower. He's a lot closer to the number I predicted this pay-per-view would do. But we'll get into that. We don't got to rush anything, okay? So before we get into this article, man, make sure you guys hit the like button below, subscribe to the channel, show some love. Road to 5K. You already know what it is, man. We working hard. We moving hard. You already know what the case is. Notification gang, comment, all that good stuff. Okay, we got all that out of the way now. Let's see why this is being reported. Canelo versus Triple G. DAZN is reporting 1.6 million pay-per-view buys. And where's this coming from? Obviously DAZN, but what facts? Where's the factuality in this? So DAZN is reporting that Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G did 1.06 million buys worldwide, which is higher than what I just reported, the 550 to 575 buys reported earlier today by Dan Rafeal. Interesting. And it's also very interesting that this particular report came out right after Eddie Hearn, when he saw that Dan Rafeal reported the numbers that they did. He came out quickly. He said, I don't agree with that. That's not it. And then now all of a sudden, DAZN is reporting what they did. How do they know? I don't know. Rafeal was quick to react to DAZN's 1.06 million buys number, saying those were global numbers. The price difference between U.S. pay-per-view and pay-per-view outside of the U.S. is significant. It costs more to purchase pay-per-view in the U.S. than outside. Rafeal points out that DAZN failed to mention the total revenue brought in for Canelo versus Triple G3. Rafeal believes that the 1.06 million global buys won't cover the 75 million combined purses for Canelo and Triple G. If the revenue brought in by DAZN with the global pay-per-view numbers, they're going to lose money on the fight. So I just kind of want to run this back real quick for you guys. So like I said, DAZN reported 1.06 million. I said Dan Rafeal reported a different number, closer to the number that I expected it to be. I said they'll be lucky if they do over 400K, 450. I said I see him around 400 to 450. Dan Rafeal, very close to what I said. He's saying 550 to 570. I tend to believe Dan Rafeal. I also tend to believe the fact that DAZN is. I don't doubt that they did 1.6 million pay-per-view buy. They just didn't do it in the U.S. Globally, yeah, I can see it. Globally, absolutely. If they did not do over 1 million pay-per-view buys globally, I already know they're taking a big financial loss. Like for that even to be in question, you know what I'm saying? And that's how marketing goes too, because let's be realistic. Every time Eddie Hearn talks about, oh, we're going to do 1 million pay-per-view buys, you know he was talking about globally. He wasn't talking about the U.S. Guys, 550,000 to 575, me personally, I'm like, remember what I said he was going to do like 450 max. So if it, like me, I'm actually surprised it did over 500,000 because I didn't think that many people gave a fuck in the U.S. about this fight. But in reality, like the purse was crazy. 75 million for both fighters. That's not even including covering all the extra shit when it comes to putting this all together. You really think they broke even on this? They lost money. They lost a lot of money, man. They lost a lot of money. I know they did. All right, I'm not gonna say no. Allegedly, okay. But I'm gonna reread this because I think this is some powerful information, man. This is powerful information. People are not gonna talk about this. DAZN is reporting that Canelo Alvarez versus Triple G did 1.06 million buys worldwide, which is higher than the 550 to 575 buys reported earlier by Dan Rafeal. And I told you Rafeal was 90% right whenever he reports anything. So Rafeal was quick to react to DAZN's 1.06 million buys, saying those were global numbers. The price difference between U.S. pay-per-view and the pay-per-view outside the U.S. is significant, which we all know. Obviously, the U.S. pay-per-view is usually like $50 above. You'd be lucky if you get a $50 pay-per-view. Let's say $60 above, and then overseas it's like $10 or something like that. Rafeal points out that DAZN failed to mention the total revenue brought in for Canelo versus Triple G. 3. Rafeal believes that the 1.06 million global buys won't cover the 75 million combined purses for Triple G and Canelo. If the revenue brought in by DAZN with the global pay-per-view numbers, they're going to lose money on the fight. It would be nice if DAZN came forward to report the total revenue brought in for the Canelo Triple G3 fight, because if it's less than 75 mil, then they've lost money on the fight. DAZN obviously knows the real deal, and if they're trying to whitewash the actual revenue hauled in for the Canelo Triple G3 fight, it's not going to change that the money they're losing. That it's not going to change the money they're losing on the fight. Ultimately, they'll know that they made a massive mistake by agreeing to put on Canelo versus Triple G3 fight. And I disagree in the sense of them making a massive mistake putting the fight on. If you think they're making a massive mistake putting the fight on due to what they expected, the amount of money they'll get back, yes. But I don't think they really expected a lot of money to come back. You guys got to understand, it's in Triple G's contract. The reason why he signed with DAZN is because it was stated he's going to get that trilogy fight. So at some point, Eddie Hearn had to acknowledge that, or he would have ended up in the same situation as Bob Arum is right now with Terrence Crawford, where he's in a big lawsuit. And a lot of people, you know, they want to focus on that law, you know, on the lawsuit. A lot of people want to focus on the, you know, racism accusations and try to, you know, build it around that. But in reality, the reason, if you look at it in reality, the reason why Terrence Crawford is suing and saying he's owed money is because he's basically saying, you told me you're going to get me the Errol Spence fight. You never got me the Errol Spence fight. This is the amount of money I would have made fighting Errol Spence, beating him, and being now a global name. Excuse me. Now, so that's basically what the whole lawsuit is allegedly about. When it comes to Errol, is Errol promised him the Errol Spence fight. He never got it. So they're basically calculating like, this is how much money I could have made if you would have got me the agreed upon fight that I re-signed with you for, and I didn't get it. And so now you can back that up. You know, you can put whatever else stipulations in there so you can, you know, possibly reach a settlement and get how much money you can. But it would have been the same thing with Eddie Hearn, man. Triple G. If Eddie Hearn didn't deliver this fight, Triple G could have easily sued him, and he probably would have made a lot of money off of it. So, you know, yeah, they lost money on this fight, but it's not about whether or not they took a chance on, you know, putting this fight together so they can make a big revenue. It's more so about like, this is what was owed to Triple G and promised to him, and, you know, they had to do it. So it's interesting. DAZN, here it comes from Dan Rafeal. DAZN announces Canelo Triple G did 1.6 million Globally, my report was that it was a disappointing 550 to 575 in the US, which accounts for the vast majority of revenue, given the much lower price in every other territory. That's very true. Like the extra 500,000, we're talking about like a $10 pay-per-view for the extra 500,000. You know, that's 500,000. Like 10 times 500,000. That's like, I think that's what, 5 mil. So that's like 5 mil from everything outside. 550, we do it times like fucking 60. You know, think about how much revenue that is. Like the US is the majority. That's the market. That's the money market that you want to, you know. That's why I was surprised that it was such terrible promotion, in my personal opinion, on the lead up to this from Eddie Hearn. I really actually think when it comes to DAZN's mind, I think they just want to hurry up and get this fight out of the way. They knew they were going to take an L on it, but they're probably hoping they're going to make it back up, because they're probably hoping Triple G continues to fight and stays under the DAZN banner, and they can possibly put some fights together, maybe with PBC or Arizona Lara. People are talking about him fighting. Triple G versus Jamal Charlo is an option now. Demetrius Andrade is still out there. We have a lot of big fights for Triple G right now, even though he lost to Canelo. And that's what DAZN is kind of licking their lips about. And then obviously Canelo has the world at his hand. So I don't think they're worried about losing money on this fight, because they probably knew they were going to lose money because they put it on at a weird time. But even with that being the case, you know, we just have to acknowledge the facts that, like I personally predicted, like no one really cares about this fight. DAZN didn't even include the total revenue generated from the global pay-per-view. And this is coming from Lance Pugmire, told by DAZN Boxing that it generated 1.6 million buys through subscribers, and outside of the buys for Canelo Triple G3, a vast difference from the 600,000 max that the two industry insiders reported to me Tuesday. The first two bouts did 1.3 million and 1.1 million on HBO Boxing. And remember, that was not through DAZN, so that was strictly in the US. So a lot of money made there. So there's another one come from Rick Glazer. Told that Canelo Triple G pay-per-view buys is barely 500,000. Remember, DAZN is worldwide. That's important to note in attempting to attain profitability. And I'm now thinking Canelo may be overpaid based on promoters and media outlets' difficulty in making a profit with Canelo fights. You're just not realizing that he's overpaid. You were crazy. I'm like, Canelo has never been a huge draw in the U.S. unless he's paired with the perfect person, i.e. Triple G. Triple G was the only time other than Floyd where he made over 1 million pay-per-view buys. The third fight, people don't want to understand the significant difference in the third fight was it was behind 2 paywalls when it comes to being with DAZN. When he was with HBO, then you just bought the pay-per-view. It's there, cable, pay-per-view, bow. With DAZN, you got to subscribe to DAZN, pay that little fee, and then pay for the pay-per-view. Niggas don't like doing that, especially in the U.S., especially if a lot of people in the U.S. don't have DAZN already. We ain't finna go out of our way to get it just for Canelo versus Triple G when it's 3 years past when it should have happened. Dan Rafeal said, do you really think the pay-per-view generated enough to cover the 2 main event purses? Eddie Hearn replied saying, you really think it did 430K buys outside of U.S.? Dear, oh dear, Daniel. And he's covering his eyes. He knows, he never said it did 430K buys outside of the U.S. He's reporting inside the U.S. Then he said, I actually have, and the gate for fight 1 was 27 million, and for fight 2 was 24 million. Now, fight number 3 will be less. Eddie Hearn said, have you heard of something called gate revenue? Also, that's irrelevant. What's relevant is your reporting is miles out. Okay, so this is okay. So Eddie Hearn said, have you heard of something called gate revenue? Also, that's irrelevant. What's relevant is your reporting is miles out. Dan Rafeal responded and said, I actually have, in response to hearing about gate revenue. The gate for fight 1 was 27 mil, and for fight 2 was 24. Fight number 3 will be less. Then he went on to say, slightly more than half of the worldwide buys were in the U.S. based on DAZN's announcement. Eddie Hearn replied, said, Dan, of those buys, the huge majority were in U.S. You were well out. Dan Rafeal went on to go, and so just back and forth between Eddie Hearn a little bit. And Eddie Hearn must be hurt. I'm waiting for them real numbers. I know y'all said 1.6 worldwide, but y'all got to break that down for me. The first Canelo Triple G fight did 1.3 million pay-per-views in the U.S. The rematch did 1.1 in the U.S. The third is going to be between 550 to 575. Per sources, DAZN's announcement of 1.6 is pay-per-view buys for the entire world. Apples to oranges. So the world doesn't revolve around the U.S. It did over 1 million the end. It does when the biggest market for the fight revenue was by far in the U.S., where the pay-per-view was $85. Paul Ducky went on a big difference for U.S. versus U.K. For example, how much pay-per-view buys cost. So $64.99 for current subscribers in the U.S. and $84.98 for new subscribers, which includes 1 month subscription. That's ridiculous. That's why I never pay for that bullshit. Canada, $64.99 for current, $89.98 for new subscribers. U.K. and Ireland, $10 for current and almost $20 for new subscribers. Australia, $50, $60 for new subscribers. New Zealand, $30 to $40. So that's just putting things into perspective. That obviously, yes, the U.S. market is the biggest market when it comes to sports period, but especially when it comes to pay-per-view buys in boxing. You know what I'm saying? And that's called pay-per-view buys. I'm not talking about fan base. I'm not talking about support. Obviously, the UK support is ridiculous when it comes to boxing, but when we're talking about money generating, you're putting on a pay-per-view. Your biggest market, your biggest source of income is going to come from the US because we pay so goddamn much for them joints. So let me ask you guys this now. 20 minutes into this joint, man, probably one of the longer videos I did. This has been alive, at the very least, But what do you guys think about all this? Whose side are you guys on? You guys on Eddie Hearn's side? Are you on Dan Rafeal's side? Who do you believe more? Do you think that these are good numbers for Canelo versus Triple G? These guys had a 75 million total payout, 50 million for, or I think it was like 50 million for Canelo, and then 25 million for Triple G. So that was just the payout of the fighters. It's not costing what, production, the arena, renting out the arena, all this good stuff, paying all the people working, employees. 75 million just off of the two fighters. So do you think a reported worldwide 1.06 million pay-per-view buys is going to cover that, with only 500,000 of them being actually bought? So half of them were only bought in the U.S. The other half was from other parts of the world, which obviously would mean a much lower revenue or stream of revenue when it comes to anything outside the U.S. boxing pertaining to pay-per-view. So whose side are you guys on? Are you more on Eddie Hearn's side? Are you saying, yo, these are great numbers? I don't care if it's from the U.S. I don't care if it's majority in the UK. If you can say you did over 500,000 pay-per-view buys in 2022, nigga, that's a win, right? Or are you more on Dan Rafeal's side, where it's like, shit, it's good numbers for a pay-per-view if you didn't pay Canelo and Triple G almost 100 million. Like, these are great numbers if we're talking about, maybe 20 million each, or 10 million, or 20 million for Canelo, and then 1 mil for Triple G. Then it's maybe a little bit different, but we're talking about almost 100 mil between just the two fighters. Is this really, are you guys going to really make money on this? So what do you guys think? Let me know you guys' opinion as always, man. Drop it below in the comments, man. While you're doing it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, show some love. Road to 5K as always for the end of the year. On the almost what's a nigga side of the game. I'll be back, but with more boxing. Stay blessed, not stressed. Hey, y'all don't make fun of my little headphones today. I broke my other ones. I was running in. I need to use the bathroom. I got my shit caught on the door. So I'm doing the old schools today. Hopefully I get some new ones, though, by Fluence Lounge. But y'all already know what it is. Much appreciation. Much love.